day 2 of my paper scrap stash busting challenge, where I'm using up 50 different pattern papers from my stash and saving them from the recycling. Here are the rules. Rule number 1. The paper is not a scrap unless it's less than 6 inches wide. Rule number 2. The challenge is complete when I've used up all 50 paper scraps. And did I mention I need to do it in just 5 days? 5 days. Rule number 3. Any paper scrap left after 5 days must go into the recycling, no matter how pretty it is. I'm saving paper scraps of all kinds, pattern paper scraps, ugly paper scraps, neutral paper scraps, and even teeny tiny scraps. No scrap left behind. It is day 2 of the challenge and I still have quite a few scraps to use, but I'm not going to get distracted by that. Today's focus is on the ugly ones. I do not want to get left with those at the end of the challenge, and I have a clever way to use them. First things first, I've chosen a photo and prepped my background. The next task is to choose my ugly pattern papers. I have a couple here that I am going to find quite tricky to use, including that busy mustard one and this one. This one right here has got some random imagery on it. This one I find quite busy, that pink one, and the green one there. That one is very dark. It's quite a dark color tone that I wouldn't normally use. Did you notice? I didn't just use the ugly pattern papers. I mixed them with prints that I love. I want to talk more about that as we go along here, but first I need to show you my plan. Now, I don't want any of these ugly pattern papers to really stand out. We are actually trying to minimize the prints, and the best way that I know how to do that is to use them in very small sections. So I'm creating a bunch of banner pieces, and those banners are going to run horizontally along the layout. These are all 1 inch wide, and I have left them at different lengths because I want to add them in a way that's very textured and I want visual interest. I don't want the tops of the banners and the bottom of the banners to line up. The plan is to pop my photo somewhere there on the right, and I do want to map that out because some of my paper scraps are actually too short. They're not long enough to be seen on the top and the bottom of the photo, see, like that. So I will have to work out a way to be able to use those. The other thing is I want to use this alphabet, which is very pale pink and green, and I need to be mindful about the pattern paper that's going to go underneath it. If it's a super busy print, it will make the title hard to read, and I don't want that. Okay, so I have a plan. So it is time to attach some of these paper strips, and yes, I'm actually going to stitch them down. It's best to work in sections, so I place a couple of the banner pieces and then I'll take this away and add my stitching, come back, add 2 or 3 more banner pieces, then stitch on those. This is all about building up the layers as you go. And can you see my little trick there? That green banner piece on the left, it was too short to be seen underneath my photo, so I have chopped it in half and stretched it out. No one will ever know that there's a gap under there. Well, you will, but you won't tell anyone, right? It is time to add my title, and I'm doing something a little bit different for this layout. The title is actually going to run vertically. I just felt that for the design of this page, it would be better to keep the flow of the title running in the same direction as those banner pieces. It's time to add some more layers and to build out the left-hand side there. And can you see? I found a spot for that oddly printed pattern paper. This one. I've added a small piece on the right there, and I will balance that out with a piece on the left. The other challenge for this layout is that dark green print, and I do think about switching things out and using the B side of that paper, but I remembered I have a bunch of white paper scraps that I also need to use up, and I thought it might be nice to pair that print with these. I really do need to be strategic about this because at the end of day 5, I do not want to have to pop any paper in the recycling. So I have mapped out the left-hand side now, and those two banners on the left, they are stitched down, and I will just go about auditioning different prints and papers to fill in this gap. But here's where it went pear-shaped. The one time that I stick something down, my photo is indeed attached, I decided I wanted to add some more banner pieces underneath it. It felt too blocky. It felt like there were banners on the left and banners on the right and nothing joining those pieces together. So what I need to do is build out the layers underneath my photo. Initially, I was going to do that just with more of the 1-inch strip banner pieces, and I do add a couple of extras. But I also felt like it needed something a little bit more weighty. So I am going to add in a banner piece that is a little bit wider. I did consider this green piece, but it just felt like it was a little bit too green heavy. The layout ended up being too green for my liking. So I do switch it out. I decided to give that tricky pink scallop print a go, and I actually really liked it. In the end, this print actually ends up looking very muted and very neutral. So I love that for it. I love that I've been able to transform like quite an unusual print into something that's very blended with my layout. I feel like I've done that on this layout with a few of the pattern papers actually. And I meant to mention it earlier. If you have ugly papers in your stash and you're looking for lots of different ways that you can use them up, I've made a video on that. I'll be sure to link it below. I'm much happier with the flow of the page now. I think it really did need those banners to stretch all the way across the page. I love the texture of them as well. See how I haven't stuck them all the way down? I've just added the stitching down the middle and then curled up the edges of each of them. It's time to add some embellishments, and I am going to keep things pretty simple for this one. There will be a main cluster there above the title, and that will stretch out towards the right, and I will balance that with a smaller cluster on the left. Essentially, they're going to be positioned in the same spots as those white banner pieces, and that's not by accident. I talk about flow a lot on the channel, I know. It's just one of those things that really helps you put your pages together. And one of the main tricks that I use is to go with the flow of what's already there. So it makes sense to build my clusters around those two highlighted banner pieces. I have a mix of embellishments happening here. There's chipboard pieces. These black flowers are actually a puffy sticker. So I'm going to place one on the right and then one on the left, and that's going to help tie those two clusters together. I also found the perfect bow for this project. It's in that same beautiful mustard color, and I'm all about them bows. I also found some wooden buttons, and I am going to include 2. I'll go with the larger size on the right hand side cluster and then a smaller one on the left. I will very often repeat elements in my clusters. It's actually a bit of a secret hack for making your layout feel really put together. It's time to add in those smaller details. I found a very cute little butterfly and a bumblebee from this puffy sticker sheet, so I'm going to add those. I also found these. These are like enamel stickers. They are in the shape of a button, and I'm going to use them essentially in the same way that I would use enamel dots. I'm creating a cluster of 3 on the right and then another cluster on the left. And that's going to call the layout done. I know you want to see close-up images, so here they are. You can see all the beautiful texture of the banner pieces and of course the details in the clusters. You now have a clever way to use up your ugly pattern papers, but remember those white and neutral ones. What do we do with those? Well, I'm not ready to abandon them just yet. They too deserve to be saved from the recycling, and I have hatched a plan. Be sure to watch this video next to see what that is. I'll see you all again very soon. Until then, bye!